We can't discuss Jung without discussing the shadow, the part that is usually determined of a suggested to be a darker self, the part inside of us or the beast trapped away. Though this isn't the full meaning and doesn't fully capture it. So I'm excited to hop in and discuss it here today on Circle Theory. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoy this content, please like, subscribe, share, follow us on Twitter. You can find all that below. It really does make a difference and help us keep making content. But let's hop in, right? The Jungians say the shadow is not the whole of the unconscious personality. We talked about the unconscious earlier and got into these ideas. It represents unknown or little known attributes and qualities of the ego aspects that mostly belong to the personal sphere that could just as well be conscious. In some aspects, the shadow can also consist of collective factors that stem from a source outside of the individual's personal life. So, I mean, complex words to suggest that there are multiple parts of the ego that can act in consciousness, multiple parts of the psyche, that collect various sources, right? These are collections of memories and experiences and parts of ourselves and fears that manifest into behaviors and exist, and we're giving them a name. And we continue, they say, it is not merely the shadow side of our personalities that we overlook, disregard, and repress. We may also do the same to our positive qualities. So the shadow, I think, is complicated, right? Because it is multifaceted, right? It is some of the darker side of ourselves, but it has uses, right? We harness some of our anger when something is unjust. We need to be more primal at points, but we don't only repress the parts of ourselves we're trying to keep, right? And sometimes we repress parts of ourselves and shove them to the shadow because we're having issues. We're struggling to be honest about who we really are, or to be able to show parts of ourselves because maybe society won't let them out. We also repress good parts of ourselves, parts of us that we're afraid to express. And these are all things that we have to dive into if we want to, at least in a Jungian sense, actualize. And they continue, sometimes, though not often, an individual feels impelled to live out the worst side of his nature and to repress his better side. Very Walden idea, right? I mean, that we need to be very careful of this. But in such cases, the shadow appears as a positive figure in his dreams. But to a person who lives out his natural emotions and feelings, the shadow may appear as a cold and negative intellectual. It then personifies poisonous judgment and negative thoughts that could have been held back. I always think of Wormtongue from Lord of the Rings. So whatever form it takes, the function of the shadow is to represent the opposite side of the ego, and to embody just those qualities that one dislikes most in other people. And I think that's really important. Have you ever noticed the people who piss you off the most are often those who exhibit the parts of ourselves we like the least? And we know they're part of our shadow. It's part of what annoys us so much, right? I know that I have these similar flaws. This is hosted there. And that this is also sometimes something that we choose to embrace. This might be a definition of evil in our quest to understand it, though it's not quite complete, because it doesn't fully attribute for cultural factors. Regardless, this is something we have to deal with. We have to confront and understand. This is why, if you look at stories, one of the most important parts of the hero's journey, I call the mirror. It's that moment where they have to look at their own reflection and their own capacity for what evil they may do. Right? This is Luke when he feels his anger and the pull of the dark side, right? These are these moments. This is Frodo when he finds himself wanting to take the ring. We have to confront that part. Video games, it's the meta self, right? This is the shadow. And so they continue. These new discoveries of depth psychology are bound to make some change in our collective ethical views, for they will compel us to judge all human actions in a much more individual and subtle way. The discovery of the conscious is one of the most far-reaching discoveries of recent times, but the fact that recognition of its unconscious reality involves honest self-examination and reorganization of one's life causes many people to continue to behave as if nothing has happened at all. It takes a lot of courage to take the unconscious seriously and to tackle the problems it raises. Most people are too indolent to think deeply about even those moral aspects of their behavior of which they are conscious. They are certainly too lazy to consider how the unconscious affects them. This is a very powerful argument from the Jungians, right? They're suggesting that we don't want to look at the mirror. We are naturally pushing against that, right? This is where we talk about all the defense mechanisms in Freudian theory, right? Projection and regression and all of these things that we do to not have to look at me and not have to look at the stuff even I chose to do, let alone what I didn't choose to do by diving deeper and exploring the darker sides of myself. This is not an easy task, and one that I would argue is a lifelong process. And those of us that work clinically, this is a big part of a process of helping somebody start to look at their own behaviors, especially when I was working in SUD. Regardless, this is the shadow. Good, bad, and different. It is the parts of ourselves that we don't want to let see the light. But the only way to kill a troll is to bring him into the sun. So let's all go take a look and be kind to each other as we do, and understand that we all have monsters we're dealing with, and being empathetic to helping other people defeat theirs. So I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe, follow us on Twitter, all of that. And I'll catch you next time here on Circle Theory.
Just to flex on it, we ain't really got it like ya. I'm a type of motherfucker that'll check the check.